The American humorist Robert Benchley once wrote, and God bless him for this, there are two kinds of people in the world. People who think there are two kinds of people in the world, and people who don't. That said, let me say this. There are two kinds of people in the world. There are people who think the time is now, and then there are the people who go, oh dear, I'm not sure that it is. I want to tell you about my sister-in-law, Jane. She is clearly somebody in the former camp. Jane is Jewish, and she is the exemplar of that great Yiddish term, chutzpah. Jane has never met a closed door that she didn't think she could find the hidden back entrance to. She's never met a bouncer who she didn't think she could sweet talk into saying, sure, come on in. She's never met a restrictive rule that she didn't think she was going to be the special exception to. It's kind of a miracle that she married my brother, who is a shy hermit who has spent his entire life wincing as his wife goes, we can make it, we can get in there, let's go. They are the absolute proof of the adage, opposites attract. Now, Jane is a school psychologist, and in the quiet corner of New England where she lives, she is loved, respected, and renowned for her willingness to do absolutely anything. Talking puppets, magic shows, standing on her head, training her pet dog to be a therapy animal, anything to help her young students cope with what's going on in their lives. So that's Jane. Keep her in mind. The story's about her. But to tell you the story properly, I have to introduce you to somebody else, my son-in-law, Nick. Now, Nick is a great dude. He has got a big heart. He's got a wonderful, devilish, sly sense of humor. But pertinent to the story, he's a little bit anxious, and in awkward moments, he has a real hard time dealing. And this is about an awkward moment that I gave him one time. Many years ago, Nick came to the conclusion that the time was now for him to take a step he'd been mulling for a long time. He decided to propose to my daughter, Sarah. And coming from a traditional Italian family, he decided that his next step had to be to talk to Sarah's parents, my wife Eileen and I, to make sure we were okay with him popping the question. So with much hemming and hawing, he called us up and invited us out for a mysterious brunch at a restaurant near us. And of course, we knew what was coming. So we go to the brunch. After a little chit-chat, Nick gathers himself up and tells them that he'd like our okay for him to propose to our daughter. Now, I am a storyteller, and in pursuit of a good story, you sometimes have to be ruthless. And I felt that this was one of those times. So I leveled Nick with a very solemn stare to match his solemnity, and I said, you know, Nick, we both know how determined and particular my daughter is and how many very, very wild ideas she has about how his life is going to go. And I have to tell you, Nick, I'm not really sure you're ready for her. Nick's face fell. His eyes became wounded puppies. I let it hang there for a nanosecond. Then I broke out a big grin, reached across, shook his hand, and said, Nick, just kidding, we're delighted. And then my wife concurred and said, yes, Nick, we're delighted, and please excuse my idiot husband. So Nick decided that he would do the deed on one of our family's treasured annual beach vacations. This one happened to be at Ocean Island, North Carolina. So on the third day, Nick and Sarah went out for one of their arduous runs on the beach. They were both training for a half marathon. And at the end of it, by the beach access, Nick knelt down, pulled out the ring, and said the magic words. And even though this was an ancient time long before Instagram, my daughter was very nonplussed because she couldn't believe he'd picked a moment when she was so sweaty and bedraggled to do this. But then all the crowd on the beach at that mid-morning moment broke out into wild applause and cheers, and she decided Nick was okay. Maybe she'd marry him. So Nick had given me the clue that this was happening. So I had arranged for our whole crowd at the beach house, 12 people, to go out for a celebratory dinner that night at probably the best restaurant at the end of the bridge on the mainland. It was an Italian place called Roberto's. And Jane was one of the 12. Now, my brother, for whom 3 is a crowd and 4 is an agony, didn't go. But Jane decided that she would bring a 13th, her dog, Emcee. And Emcee is a rescue, of course. My tender-hearted sister-in-law would have it no other way. And he was one scrawny creature, bedraggled white fur with this damaged one eye that wept all the time. But she trained him to be a therapy dog for the kids at her school. And she liked to sort of treat him as a service dog. And that's how she had somehow got him into this beach house, which had a no pets policy. She'd indicated to the realtor that he was a service dog without really being clear who he was a service dog for, and he fell for it. So we're getting the car ready to go to Roberto's, and Jane comes walking out, and she's carrying the mutt. And I know up in the small Massachusetts town where they live, Emcee is kind of a celebrated character, and he gets to dine pretty much where he wants. But my thought was, not now, not at Roberto's, not at my daughter's engagement party. So I said, Jane, with storm clouds circling my head, I said, Jane, this is not the kind of restaurant where you can take Emcee. This is not the night to do this. Jane said, it'll be fine, don't worry. And she got in the car with Emcee on her lap. So we go to Roberto's, and somehow we got in and got seated without incident. Server comes to take our drink orders and notices Emcee nestled on Jane's lap. And she goes, ma'am, I'm terribly sorry, but no dogs are allowed at Roberto's. And Jane, it's okay, he's a service dog. A service dog for who? Do you have a disability where you need a service dog? And Jane goes, well, I'm the owner, but do you have a disability? Now, Jane, her quiver of chutzpah includes arrows named evasion, double talk, and changing the subject. But she doesn't lie. So she said, no, I don't have a disability, but you have to understand, Emcee does wonderful work with school children. The server says, I'll be right back. She comes back in a minute with Roberto, the owner and head chef. And Roberto has an anger that's as fiery as his arrabbiata sauce. He is angry, he is spluttering. And finally he goes, the dog, out, the dog has to go out. And he points to the door. Jane tries reassurances, tries to make her arguments. He points at the door. She has no choice but to walk through that door and out into the parking lot holding Emcee. So now everyone at the table has a quandary. Do we sit around and wait for the food we just ordered, or do we march out of the restaurant in solidarity with Emcee and his mistress? As paterfamilias, I issued my ruling. Jane can stay out in the damn parking lot with the damn dog I told her not to bring. This is Sarah and Nick's dinner. We're going to eat it, and we're going to enjoy it, damn it. And then the food comes out. And as it arrives, our ossobuco, our parmigiana, our lasagna, the chef follows it out. And I thought, oh, God, what's going on? And he says, the woman with the dog, where is she? And I thought, he's called the police. He wants to arrest her. And he goes, no, I have made a terrible mistake. Can someone please bring her back in? And we go, what's going on? He says, I talked to my wife. Turns out, as fate would have it, Roberto's wife was a veterinarian. And when he called her, full of rage, to complain about this crazy woman and her stupid dog, she was appalled at her husband, not Jane. She told him that it was terrible to be so unaccommodating to a therapy animal, and ordered him no ifs, ands, or buts about it to make this right. So Jane comes shuffling back in with Emcee, who's looking all over the place. And he says, ma'am, please sit down. I must apologize for losing my temper earlier. You and your animal are always welcome in my restaurant. Please sit down and enjoy your meal. And so we're looking on in wonderment at this when Roberto completes his apology. And he says, of course your meal is on the house, and we'd like you to order any dessert that your heart desires, and that is free as well. So Jane's blithe disobedience of the rules hadn't caused her any problems. It had earned her a comp meal. And we noticed she was the only one. My daughter, who just got engaged, and the young man who nervously knelt on the beach a couple hours before, they weren't comped. And you know who else wasn't? The father and mother-in-law to be of Nick, who were on the hook for paying for the rest of this caloric extravaganza. So the moral of this story would be, when you have enough chutzpah, the time is always now. And sometimes the food is not only hot and tasty, it's free.